what we are going to do at the start of the show tonight, it is part of the show notes, is talking about David Seymour and David Seymour's next controversy on some levels. And this has been brought up in stuff.co.nz. It says why a tiny Parliament crest on David Seymour's Victim of the Day post has raised big questions. And long story short, which no one else picked up on, I certainly didn't pick up on it yesterday. At the
Our
bottom of
chat did.
Oh, did they?
It's been mentioned in the chat right from the get-go that this had the parliamentary crest on it. I was just sitting here going, oh, you smart cookies. And it's taken the media this long to catch up.
It goes to show who leads the world in media commentary. It's the BHN chat section. The comment section. It's the opposite of the NZ Herald comment section. This is the one where you get stuff. And because it's got authorised by Todd Stevenson, MP, Parliament Buildings, Wellington, and it's got the seal, that basically speaks to the idea, I think as it says just up here, that Parliament sort of endorses these words. Anyway, it does say in there somewhere. It's pretty much talking about it. I saw an article, I think that's the right word, written by Dr. Kevin Veale today. Kevin Veale is from Massey University, and to start the show off tonight, we're going to bring Kevin on and have a chat about his The Conversation post, which is Playful or Harmful. David Seymour's post raised question about what's okay to say online, and also we may have a look at the parliamentary seal in there as well. So can we welcome to the show Dr. Kevin Veale. Kevin, good evening to you, and thank you so much for jumping in and joining us tonight.
Kia ora, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for having me. Sorry about the audio quality.
Yeah, we'll get there. It's all right. It's all right. Hey, why don't we first of all, give us the elevator pitch. Playful or harmful, David Seymour's post raised questions about what's okay to say online. The article you wrote started off, Deputy Prime Minister, ACT Party leader, said he's being playful and having fun with his Victim of the Day social media posts targeting opponents of the RSB. So why don't we just start there and you give us some of your takeaway from that, and we'll go from there.
From my perspective, it's online harassment. It's quite clear. I study online harassment. I've written a book about it. It's using a playbook that's more than 10 years old now. It is about exposing people to your followers in a way where those followers are going to do something, and you might not know exactly specifically what, but you know there's going to be a negative response. And like Tory Whanau in your video the other day is 100% right. It is a known thing. It is a known pattern. Sanjana Hototwa, whose name I've probably just mangled, and who was not with the Disinformation Project, I made a mistake with that in the article, has already done research and published a thing about being able to track the extent to which abuse and harassment spikes based on all of these Seymour posts. And it's a very, very common pattern. It's old, it's known. You can go back before Gamergate. You can go back before all of these things. And it's dangerous. It's basically exactly what Brian Tamaki's been doing. It's just in a different context.
Yeah.
I'm now no longer sure I'm answering the question.
You are a senior lecturer and a doctoral co-supervisor, School of Humanities, Media and Creative Comms. So that means you're an academic, basically in communication. How would you explain your role to us? What you do for a paycheck?
Sure. I basically teach students how to understand the media landscape, both so that they can reverse engineer things to build their own media and communications, but also to look at kind of the power dynamics of the landscape and the stuff that we don't really even notice or think about because we've got like decades of experience of reading the media. And so if we come back to, it's like word choice, it's like choices of color, it's like how editing works, all of that kind of good stuff. But mostly it is about power dynamics in the media is kind of a lot of the meat and heart of things. And mostly my kind of specific niche is looking at storytelling. and in a digital context. But what happened was that I was looking at storytelling in digital context in like the 2010s, and that was when I was looking at alternate reality games. And that was when a huge number of my friends and colleagues started to get just waves of online harassment. And what I noticed at that point was that it was working like an alternate reality game, but rather than being kind of this fun community that was kind of doing like a conspiracy ball with string of figuring out a mystery, the goal was to ruin someone's life or drive them to suicide.
So was that games like Second Life, that sort of thing? Where you had an alternative universe that you lived in and were a different person?
Not quite. That was kind of more of a specific game, but definitely the communities around it. But like you had things like there was one called The Beast, and that turned out to be promotion for like that old Spielberg movie AI. But it was this whole thing that there was a poster went up advertising AI, where one of the crew was listed as like this AI therapist. And if you did a web search for this person's name, it would pop up as being this person. It was this beginning of a rabbit hole for this whole story world about being in the future and robot rights and all this kind of thing. So it wasn't quite like Second Life or virtual reality, but it's like storytelling almost through stuff hidden online in other things. But it's become like we don't really talk about alternate reality games so much anymore because they were so closely tied to promoting films. It was all kind of expensive. There was one called I Love Bees that turned out to be an ad for Halo 2. And so there was this kind of gap because they were so expensive to do. And it was very skilled. It required a huge amount of skill and organization because like what they did for I Love Bees was that this crew of creators came up with like a warehouse full of a maze of whiteboards. And they just filled this thing up with whiteboards. And they expected it to be a year worth of content. And the people who were in the community, they completed all of those puzzles in days. So it's like we're talking about with BHN chat, spotting things in pictures and things. It's exactly like that for storytelling. It's just one of the reasons we don't talk about alternate reality games so much is that we've effectively unleashed them on the world. We're like QAnon and all of this nonsense and the anti-vax weirdos and things. It is just taking over the world. It's the same kind of thing. This conspiracy of seeing patterns in everything. So basically I kind of have these two strands of research, getting back to the point, where one of the things I've been looking at is online extremism and abuse and harassment and kind of the ways that these things use social media and the patterns that they work through. And one of the things that's really obvious and one of the problems with it is that social media companies profit from them, which is why they're very unmotivated to kind of stop it, because it all looks like activity. If somebody's being spammed with thousands of images telling them to kill themselves and with gifs of the Holocaust, it's great engagement. And so you can sell that to ads. You can sell that to advertisers.
Chewie, you're in the world of gaming and stuff. You got any thoughts, any questions, any comments around that side of things?
Yeah, I worked in gaming retail around the time that Gamergate was kicking off, and even then the feeling of how things changed and how people interacted with other people online changed dramatically. And seeing that morph over the years, like you quite rightly mentioned QAnon and people just being almost terminally plugged in. Yeah. And I'm just going to pull on this thread and just keep pulling, even if it clearly connects to someone's real world life. I mean, a horrible example of that just recently was a person that uploaded videos of rehabilitating foxes and videos about foxes in the US. She was hounded online to the point of suicide. And it's just the people... There's a lot of people out there, I think, that had this disconnect between the real world and the online world. And if it happens in a message board, or if it happens in a series of fake accounts that you create, then it's not real. Or alternatively, they're just psychopaths and they just have no empathy. And when that crosses over, I think, into the political space, which we have seen a lot of. I'm very much on record saying that COVID broke people's brains, that they were nothing but online solidly for like a year or more. The rules of that game of like just keep pushing until it breaks is part of our political sphere now, especially online. And someone like David Seymour, with the ideologies that the ACT Party have, speaks to a certain type of supporter that I cannot believe that he can try for plausible deniability of like, oh, I'm just having fun, I'm just, that sort of thing. He must know that he has his own army of flying monkeys, and he's just basically flinging the window open and going, here is a publicly accessible figure, have at it, I didn't tell you to do it.
There's a number, I think you're absolutely right, and there's a number of things that's kind of reminded me of. In terms of real world consequences, the Christchurch terrorist, who I'm not going to name, is one of these people. The Christchurch terror attacks was entirely motivated by a guy who was showing off to an online community of extremists. He posted his manifesto on 4chan with the statement, I'm fed up of all of these useless shit posts, I'm going to make an effort post. And that was how he described the mass murder. It was an effort post
written on his weapon.
Yeah. And in terms of like the plausible deniability that Seymour has, you're absolutely right. Even if we hypothetically read David Seymour's mind that he's got no idea, it's like if you're on a bus and you stand on someone's toes, oops, you get off their toes, you say sorry. You do it again 2 minutes later, and then 2 minutes after that, that starts to look a little deliberate. So, he's been told that there are these consequences. He's been, people have talked to him about it, and he keeps doing it.
Including Tori Whānau. That was one of the things I wanted to make
clear in
her conversation. She said that she had talked to him about what he was saying and what it was doing to Goras. And I stopped the interview and I said, just to be clear, you're saying you spoke these words to him. He responded to you. This is first-hand experience. And she said, yes. So
precisely, yes. I was really interested in that part of the video. So yeah, it is. He has no plausible deniability on this one. The problem is that there is this idea that online spaces and offline spaces are separate. You still get people who say, "Oh, just get offline," and how? Our lives are online. They're braided. There is no online and offline. It's all the same. And one of the things that I've been talking about with online harassment is it never stays online. If you get traumatized, that stays with you. You carry that with you off into the woods. If you go for a walk, it's still there. It's with you. It's part of your life. And also, people come out of the internet and get into your life if they really want to come after you. And we've got all of these cases where somebody's done something like David Seymour has done, of single people out publicly. And people have come into their workplace. People have followed them home. People have, like there was a case with Anita Sarkeesian, who was kind of the person who was Gamergate before Gamergate, where somebody took a picture of her parents through her parents' window and said that you're not going to have parents in the morning, and didn't do anything. But the whole point was to say, I have means, motive, and opportunity. Haha. What if I did? What if I do it tomorrow?
Here in Dunedin, when we had Aaron Hawkins, a very left-wing mayor, he's often spoken about how the fact that his address was publicly accessible, and people would leave things in his letterbox or go onto his property and that sort of thing. And he's quite often pointed out the fact that politicians, by nature of the rules around politics and that sort of thing, are exposed in that way. They're accessible because of their job. The people know where they work because of their job, and then often their home addresses are publicised or publicly available at least.
Can I just let me add something in here, because when I was working on ZB, I received death threats to my mailbox at home. I received an email, a letter hand-delivered to my letterbox home saying, see how easy it is to find you. Since I've been doing this job, there's been one incident that we've been to the police, which was a death threat made towards Chewie and I. I told you about that, Chewie? I'm sure I told you about that.
Yep.
It wasn't too much to worry about, but it's like we want this on record because it was a known person who runs in that world. And just in the last few weeks, some incel little operator has put my address on Twitter, to which I've again informed the police. So I was going to kind of ask this question, which may not be so relevant right now. It's a bit embarrassing, but when I was a kid, one of the movies I could watch, like, you get those movies you can watch to the end and then you go to the start and watch it again. For me, that was Demolition Man when I was younger. And for right now, for me, it seems to be Ready Player One. I've probably seen it 10 times. And if I see it on, I can just watch it. Ready Player One paints this world of people living online, but it seems that the living they're doing online is like, when I say good, I guess I'm not putting a moral judgment on it, but it doesn't seem to be full of all the trolls and the nastiness that we're talking about. And what I guess I'm wondering is, back to when I was at ZB, they used to say things about us on Trade Me message boards, and now they're saying things about us on Twitter, and they're saying things about us on on Facebook and that sort of thing, or in comments sections. Where are we going in the world now that we've sort of started this conversation slightly differently now? Are we going towards a Ready Player One? Or are we going towards 4chan becomes 8chan, becomes 16chan, becomes the world's now blowing
Mad
up?
Max.
Yeah. Like we talked about Twitter the other day, calling it Nazi blue sky. So where do we go to? What's our direction?
What the direction I think is really troubling at the moment that we've seen overseas, that we're seeing now, is that basically Seymour is digging into the Kiwi Farmsification of politics. We've, the whole thing with Gamergate and this profitable online harassment and things. I had a kind of crisis in 2016, 2017, because I've been writing this research. And then all of these really bad actors who I was keeping track of, who were central pillars in kind of online harassment, targeting particularly women and people who were not straight, white, cis, able-bodied dudes, got invited into Trump's cabinet at that point. And so that pattern is still there. We've got Elon Musk buying Twitter and kind of weaponizing it and taking it over. And now Seymour is doing the same thing here. So it is a pattern that we're starting to see escalate. And it really needs to be nipped in the bud as hard as we possibly can. But the thing with Seymour is that there's two main things that worry me. One of them is he's clever. We don't talk about him enough as being clever. We talk about him being Rimmer. We talk about him being a clown. We talk about him being one of the world's just most awful people. But he's clever. He's extremely practiced with this. Like Tori Whanau said, basically, Tori Whanau was 1,000% right for everything she said. He is a practiced operator, and everything he does orients around power. He's very good at it. He uses civility and kind of the colonial landscape of New Zealand as a weapon. He's constantly, if you look at parliamentary video, he's constantly needling Te Pāti Māori MPs and interrupting them with little points of order and kind of just basically indicating constantly, this is a landscape that suits me. This is a landscape that reflects me. It's comfortable for me. All of this kind of thing. And the other thing that worries me is that, we talk about Seymour, but it's not just him. It's not just even that there's other MPs in the party. It's that there is a whole broader infrastructure in Aotearoa that it's not even that he's normalized, it's that he's already normal. So if you start talking about the fact that he's a very dangerous guy, you seem extreme. And you're
he's mainstream. Like when you say he's not normal, he's mainstream. He's the current acting prime minister, for God's sake.
He's the current acting prime minister, and the media landscape is way too comfortable with just parroting and uncritically repeating these points of information. And they like him because he's interesting, because he starts these fights, he does things. Like, I can only speculate as to why. But we can say that the way that Seymour is treated is wildly different, obviously, to, say, Wahine Maori in Parliament. When and like we're digging into the whole media studies thing about looking at structural racism, structural sexism. When Todd Muller had a mental health crisis, people were everywhere saying, we're going to take this very, very seriously. We're going to, this is about respect. This is about care. And then when Kerry Allen has a mental health crisis, what happens? She gets chased down the road by reporters. When Dolores Garriman has a mental health crisis, because partly of all of this abuse, she's not even an MP anymore. She's years out from being an MP. She's just a citizen. She gets news articles devoted to her everyday life. The levels of respect are wildly different. And it's like, if you talk about this, people say, are you accusing us of being racist? I can say, I don't know, but there's a pattern, and it's a racist pattern. Where's it coming from? Is it coming from kind of, there's so many people in the media in New Zealand who I enormously respect and do great work. But at the same time, we can say the machine is making sausage, and it's not good sausage. It is, in fact, radioactive, poisonous sausage. I've lost control of the metaphor here, but this is an outcome we're seeing. And all we can say is, where is that coming from? How do we interrupt this?
Well, also, if it's an outcome we're seeing, right, picture a wave coming towards us. Is there a way to ride and tame this wave, or do we just have to hang on and go with the flow, and we have no control over where it's going to end up?
I think there are ways of steering it. Getting people off Twitter is a really good idea. This is about people in the BHN chat. If you're on Twitter, please stop. Go to Blue Sky. I have issues with Blue Sky as well, but it's better than Twitter in the same way that getting kicked in the head is better than Twitter. Kicked in the head by a horse. So, the social media landscape that we're in matters a lot to our mental and emotional health and our ability to just survive without getting traumatized. So Twitter, bad. Getting politicians off Twitter would matter a lot. I think, because so many of them are trying to do outreach there. They're trying to do outreach on Facebook. A lot of these platforms are actively hostile to democracy. And this is where I sound like my own tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. But if you look at it, it's true. Facebook helped drive literal genocide in Myanmar. And then nothing's really happened as a consequence of that. But it was profitable. So, we can do this. It's just that we have to treat the social media landscape as not neutral. It's not neutral to our mental health. It's not neutral to our democracy. And so the further we can get these conversations happening into better environments, the healthier people will be. But front loading kind of, where are the most vulnerable people among us? How do we keep them safer? How do we let them lead conversations that doesn't expose them to harm? Because that's one of the paradoxes at the moment, and a lot of the kind of the Nazi presences in society are very aware of this. So this is why we can ask, why is it that Tori Whanau and Dame Anne Salmon have been presented as they're the people to talk to about this issue from David Seymour, when it's David Seymour's issue? They didn't invent it. They're not coming up with this out of nothing. They're the ones making complaints about an existing thing. He's not being interviewed about this. The people at risk are.
Let me just share something before we start to wrap. I approached salmon, isn't it? It's like salmon, the meat, salmon.
I probably got it wrong. I often do.
To come on and have a chat about it, and her response is basically needs a break from the brouhaha. I'm sure you're understanding how demanding it all is. So basically, because of David Seymour, she has now chosen to eliminate herself from the conversation that
job
she
done.
had such an important part to play in. Like, she has an important view to have, but because of what Seymour did, that then flew through to his incel family, that then lumbered on top of the dame. She's now gone, I just need a break, and she's out. Yeah, so as Chewie said, so job done, Seymour.
Job done.
That's one less criticizer.
This is one of the things that we can talk about with Seymour. I said earlier, everything he does is oriented around power. Like putting Dame Salmon on this derangement syndrome, whatever he's calling it, thing, is a sign in many directions at once. He's an extremely effective communicator, because they said it doesn't matter what level of political mana you have. It doesn't matter what your background is. If you cross me, I'm going to throw you to the wolves. And that will have been heard loud and clear. He does things like this. This stuff shows that he's powerful. He does other stuff where it's not even that important, but it shows that nobody's stopping him. He's been escalating recently, and all of the stuff of Luxon's not stopping him. Luxon's not stopping him. And it's all about power. And so it's about, he's very good at it. Because like the whole derangement syndrome thing, that is simultaneously insulting people, like Tori Fanau said. Again, she was right in every particular. It's insulting and dehumanizing people. It's discrediting them and kind of framing them as not somebody to listen to. It divides the world symbolically, so that it creates two audiences. There's the people who agree with him, who are sensible, and then there's the people who are humorless and who thus shouldn't be taken seriously. And, you know, we live in an incredibly ableist society. Deranged people are understood to be dangerous. Now, hopefully, the BHN chat all know that people with mental illness are far more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators of violence. But in terms of setting people up as people who your mob might go after, telling your mob, these people are deranged, they're not safe, it is part of dehumanizing things as well. It's dehumanizing and escalating the possibility that they're a risk. The same thing happens with with TERFs and people going after trans people. Trans people are mentally ill, they say. Mentally ill. And like the media landscape says, mentally ill people are dangerous. So, you know, you have, and then we, you know, I'm just frothing now, but it's a pattern. These patterns map. It's the structure of power. You know, TERFs are doing it for one thing. David Seymour is doing it for something else. David Seymour has supported TERFs in the past for various political reasons, but, you know, it's the same machinery. It's the same kind of pattern, but it's being used for different purposes in different contexts. It's all a bit fractal. You see the same thing repeating again and again in different scales and different directions.
Kevin, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I'm glad we set this up and we ran with it. Chewie, is there anything you want to wrap with? Anything you want to finish up with Kevin with?
I do have. I am interested in your thoughts on this. I think when it comes to political tragics like us, the terminally online, the politically siloed, all of that sort of stuff, when we look at what someone like David Seymour is doing, and we can identify what he's doing, and we can cut through the fig leaves that he puts in front of it, the deniability, the layers of deniability that he has, or the fact it's a multi-pronged thing. You can point at one thing and he'll deny it, but the other three things are still valid. How do you sort of point that out to people of like, I know what he's doing, you haven't seen it yet, and not seem insane?
I have some theories. I mean, the main thing is that we don't talk to like the diehard supporters. That the time we spend is about the people who think he's a cheeky chappy. This is all a bit of a gas, and we can say, well, I don't understand. Why is this joke funny? And, you know, just turn it around. And like you get people who say, oh, well, he's being shut down by all of these people who disagree with him. So you don't think he can handle debate? How does this make sense? And just, getting people asking these questions. And one of the things I hoped to do with the conversation piece and the links in it was like, there's going to be a bunch of people who, like, fascists love hypocrisy. It shows that they're powerful. It shows they don't have to follow the rules. But there's going to be people in National who might be considering ACT and other things who won't like the hypocrisy. So pointing out, this guy is saying he's just making a joke when he's really gone after people for making jokes about him. That kind of thing might break them off. But mainly it's just kind of the best thing I can think of is building community with people who are less safe than we are, asking them what they need. We've got like the Badimaru, we've got the Greens, we've got people who are kind of engaged in this and making sure that they're as safe as possible going forward to kind of have these conversations. One thing I will say is that like a lot of this is about cult deprogramming. And a lot of people I know say, you've got somebody who's really into ACT, you've got somebody who's into white supremacy, etc. We have to talk them down. And just the thing I want to say is the odds of you being harmed or joining them down the rabbit hole are far higher than you being able to talk them out of it. Don't abandon them, but like, this is something that trained professionals do because it is dangerous long-term work. And it's actually some things that people do for recruitment. They try to get people to talk them out of it. And then they say, well, I'm going to show you, come with me, and kind of take people in. I'm now rambling completely. I'm sorry I've taken over your show, but just like,
no.
Look after yourselves. Look after yourselves. Don't let people be an anchor that's going to wreck your mental health because you have to apply your own oxygen mask first. Build community with people who will support you and make you want to live your best, most vibrant life rather than people who are just energy vampires. And, you're trying to make them less vampiric. Yes. That's a good goal, but it's not worth it. The progress requires us to have enough energy to fight. And if you're just talking to these people the whole time, trying to drag them up, it's not going to work out well on the long run.
Hey, Kevin, it's been a pleasure speaking to you tonight. Thank you for jumping in. I think we've made a little connection here that maybe we can see again being used in the future. So that
would be amazing.
And then maybe when you're up neck of the woods, we can come and speak to some of your graduate students about communication or something. Is that right, James?
That would be amazing.
Yep. How to do everything wrong in 30 seconds or less. We can do that. Kevin, thanks for your time, man. We really appreciate you giving us some thoughts.
Thank you very much for having me.